I bought 6 bottles of motor oil from 6 different types of stores, and I spent just over $200. According to testing data from the American Petroleum Institute and the Petroleum Quality Institute of America, 4 of those bottles are either counterfeit, substandard, or so far below specification that putting them in your engine does about as much good as pouring in a grinding compound. 1 is questionable. Only 1 tests consistently safe. Globally, fake lubricants are a multi-billion-dollar problem, but in America, the danger rarely looks counterfeit. It just sits quietly on shelves you would never think to question. 6 bottles, 6 different types of sellers. The rules were strict. Buy the same oil grade, no special requests, no warnings, and do not alert the supplier. Just walk in, order like any driver would, hand over the cash, and leave with a sealed bottle. Every sample from the chain retailer to the back row flea market table faced the same standard. Each was logged, sealed, and delivered directly to an independent API-accredited laboratory. No detours, no tampering. Full chain of custody. The lab ran certified ASTM tests for viscosity, additive content, and compliance with the API service category stamped on the label. This was not theater, it was a reproducible investigation, the kind regulators and consumer groups rely on. Globally, the problem is $13 to $14 billion a year in fake or substandard lubricants, according to the Asian Lubricants Industry Association. In the US, the threat hides behind outdated specifications, weak shelf policing, and ambiguous supply chains, not cartoonish knockoffs. Each bottle from the 6 was ranked by the same yardstick. The outcome was that only 1 seller type delivered oil that was consistently safe. The rest were either outright dangerous or skating the edge of failure. Gas station convenience stores seem like the obvious place to grab a bottle of oil, quick, easy, and right next to the pumps. Most drivers assume that if it is on the shelf, it has to be safe. But the numbers tell a different story. The Petroleum Quality Institute of America, PQIA, found that nearly 1 in 5 oils sampled from convenience stores met only obsolete API specifications, some dating back to the SA category from before 1930. These are not just minor technicalities. Oils labeled with old specifications lack the modern additives that shield engines from wear, sludge, and high-temperature breakdown. Pouring one of these into a modern engine can mean metal-on-metal contact, rapid bearing wear, and turbocharger failure in just a few thousand miles. The risk is built into the business model. About 97% of gas-selling convenience stores in the US are independently owned. That means each owner decides which oil to stock, often buying from regional distributors with little to no vetting. There is no centralized procurement, no uniform supplier screening, and almost no technical bulletins to warn about outdated products. As a result, discount and private label brands slip onto shelves with minimal oversight. In New Jersey, state authorities pulled 19 motor oil products from convenience stores after finding false API certification marks. Michigan prosecutors have filed felony charges against distributors caught selling mislabeled oil. These are not rare busts. They are proof that the problem is real, ongoing, and homegrown. The kicker is this: on the shelf, a bad bottle looks just like a good one. Label designs mimic legitimate brands, and unless you are trained to spot outdated API codes or missing batch numbers, there is no way to tell what is inside. For drivers in a hurry, the difference between protecting an engine and destroying it can come down to a single rushed purchase at the pump. Flea markets turn the risks of bad oil from a hidden shelf problem into something far more brazen. Here, the rules of retail break down completely. Sellers work out of the backs of vans, from folding tables or under pop-up tents, offering motor oil in everything from unmarked gallon jugs to reused branded bottles. There's no paperwork, no receipts, and no way to trace where the oil came from or what's actually inside the container. The only guarantee is the price, always lower than anywhere else, sometimes by half. This isn't a fringe issue. Dozens of unauthorized brands have appeared in state after state, each with names you won't find in any manufacturer's registry. The scale can be staggering. In one case that made international headlines, Russian authorities seized 70 tons of counterfeit oil from a single illicit factory outside Moscow. That was enough to fill thousands of flea market stalls for months. While that bust happened overseas, the same tactics, including industrial blending, drum decanting, and relabeling, show up at American swap meets and roadside markets. Here, oil is poured from 50-gallon drums into generic containers or even recycled antifreeze bottles. Labels are often handwritten or simply missing. There are no batch codes, no API marks, and no way to verify the product's origin. What makes these venues so dangerous is their total lack of oversight. State inspectors rarely visit, and there's no distributor to hold accountable. The low price tempts buyers looking to save a few dollars, but the real cost can be catastrophic. Engine bearings ground down by abrasive sludge, turbochargers destroyed by thin or contaminated oil, and warranties voided by a single fill of untraceable lubricant. In the flea market world, the bargain is always a gamble, and the odds are stacked against the driver. Peer-to-peer platforms like eBay and Facebook Marketplace have rewritten the rules for how motor oil reaches American garages. On these sites, the bottle's legitimacy is built on polished photos, spotless labels, and seller ratings that look reassuringly high. But the reality behind the screen can be anything but safe. Sellers can relabel used or industrial oils, copy familiar branding, and ship bottles across state lines with almost no scrutiny. This is not a fringe risk limited to a handful of bad actors. Online, a single seller can move hundreds of bottles a week, each one indistinguishable from the real thing at a glance. Inside the listings, the details are designed to disarm suspicion, crisp images, API certification logos, and even batch codes that look official. But none of these guarantee the contents. In documented form cases, buyers have discovered that what arrived in the mail was chemically stripped, missing the anti-wear additives modern engines depend on. The outer packaging may be perfect, but the oil inside can be little more than recycled waste, industrial fluid, or a blend thinned to dangerous levels. Buyers who spot a problem may get a quick refund from the platform, but that does nothing to reverse the silent engine damage already set in motion. Unlike a returned shirt, counterfeit oil can void warranties, trigger denied insurance claims, and saddle owners with repair bills running into the thousands. In our own test, the bottle purchased through this channel landed squarely in the UN Safe group. The lab flagged it for failing to meet the minimum additive and viscosity requirements for its labeled grade. The risk is not theoretical. When oil can cross state borders in a padded envelope, the problem becomes national overnight. For drivers lured by convenience and price, the real cost often is not visible until the engine fails. Quick lube shops promise speed and convenience, but the risk to your engine can be immediate and invisible. Unlike a sealed bottle, most quick lube oil comes straight from a bulk tank in the back, with no original packaging, no label to check, and no way for the driver to verify what is actually going into the engine. Once the hood drops, any hope of tracing the oil's source is gone. The American Petroleum Institute, API, has zeroed in on this channel for a reason. Their aftermarket audit program targets bulk oil samples from service shops, running them through the same laboratory tests used to certify new oil. In too many cases, the results are alarming. Some shipments fail to meet even the most basic standards for viscosity, additive content, or API service category. These are not just minor technical violations. They mean the oil cannot protect against wear, sludge, or high-temperature breakdown. The Bullseye case lays bare how quickly things can go wrong. When API investigators sampled bulk oil from quick lube shops supplied by Bullseye lubricants, every single batch failed, 100%. Not one met any current or even historical API service category. The oil was so far below spec that API issued immediate non-conformance notices and referred the supplier for enforcement. For drivers, that means a routine oil change can turn into a mechanical time bomb. Contaminated or adulterated oil in a bulk tank can expose a healthy engine to catastrophic damage in minutes, such as scored bearings, turbo failure, or even a full engine seizure. Warranties and insurance coverage evaporate when the oil does not meet the manufacturer's required spec. In our own investigation, one purchase matched the same failure profile linked to bulk quick lube channels. The risk is not just theoretical. When you cannot see the bottle, you cannot trust what is inside. When the oil's wrong, the consequences are real and expensive. Inside the lab, every bottle faces a battery of forensic tests designed to reveal what the label can't. The independent analysts start with virgin oil analysis, the gold standard for catching counterfeits. Here, the chemistry tells the real story. Genuine oil shows a clean base stock, a strong signal for anti-wear additives, and a chemical fingerprint that matches the manufacturer's published spec. Bad oil, on the other hand, leaves a trail of red flags. The first giveaway is oxidation. Counterfeit or recycled oil often carries a heavy load of oxidized polymers, chemical leftovers from thousands of miles inside someone else's engine. No amount of dye or filtration can erase these markers. Metal contamination is another warning sign. Under the microscope, the lab finds traces of iron, copper, and lead, tiny fragments that signal used oil was filtered and repackaged, not truly re-refined. These metals act like sandpaper, accelerating wear the moment they circulate through a new engine. Additive depletion is the next clue. Modern engines rely on ZDDP, zinc dialkyl-dithiphosphate, to form a protective barrier on moving parts. In stripped down or fake blends, ZDDP is missing or barely detectable. The result is immediate metal-on-metal contact, camshaft scoring, and rapid bearing wear. Detergent chemistry also matters. Without the right detergents, sludge and varnish build up fast, blocking oil passages and starving critical components of lubrication. Counterfeiters often try to fool buyers by tuning viscosity. The oil feels right when cold, but under heat, it thins out far below the SAE grade stamped on the label. This viscosity drop means the oil can't maintain a protective film, especially in high-stress zones like turbochargers. Every one of these failures is caught by the lab's protocols, ASTM D445 for viscosity, ICP for metals, and FTIR for oxidation. To the naked eye, the bottle looks perfect. To the lab, it is a ticking time bomb. Inside the engine, the failure starts at the molecular level. When oil is missing its anti-wear additives, especially ZDDP, there is nothing left to shield metal parts. Cam lobes and bearings lose their protective film, and metal-on-metal contact begins almost immediately. Every revolution scrapes away the surfaces, sending microscopic shards of iron and copper into the oil. These fragments accelerate oxidation, turning the fluid thick and dark. Sludge forms, settling in narrow oil passages and starving the valvetrain and turbocharger of lubrication. As the sludge grows, it blocks flow to the turbo's high-speed bearings, where oil temperatures spike above 200 degrees Celsius. Carbon deposits bake onto the shaft, grinding down the turbo hardware until it seizes or shatters. The chain reaction does not stop there. Starved of oil, bearings overheat and warp. Pistons scuff against cylinder walls. Eventually, the crankshaft locks up, complete engine seizure. This is not a slow fade. It can happen in a few thousand miles, sometimes less. The financial fallout is brutal. A normal oil change costs $30 to $75. But a single fill of substandard oil can lead to a rebuild or full engine replacement, with bills ranging from $4,500 to $8,000. And when the damage is traced to oil that does not meet the manufacturer's required spec, warranty coverage disappears. Insurers can also deny claims if the oil fails chemical analysis. One bad bottle can turn routine maintenance into an unpayable disaster. Amazon's platform sits in a gray zone, neither a guaranteed safe haven nor an obvious threat. The core problem is the way Amazon handles inventory for products with the same listing. Bottles supplied by third-party sellers and Amazon's own stock are pooled together in the same warehouse bins. This means a single product page can deliver oil from completely different sources, some legitimate, some questionable, depending on which bottle is picked and shipped. Our Amazon sample landed in the middle. It passed basic viscosity check, but the additive package came up weak, missing key levels needed for long-term engine protection. This kind of borderline oil does not trigger an immediate failure, but it can quietly accelerate wear, shortening engine life without warning. A prime badge or a glossy product page offers no real assurance. The risk comes from the co-mingled stock, not the branding. For drivers, Amazon represents a mixed risk channel, sometimes safe, sometimes not, and never as predictable as a major in-store retailer. Major in-store retailers, places like AutoZone, O'Reilly, Napa, Advance Auto Parts, Costco, and Walmart's physical locations, stood apart in every lab test. Not one bottle from these shelves failed to meet the current API-SP specifications. The difference is structural, not just a matter of luck or good branding. These chains use centralized procurement, and oil is sourced directly from licensed manufacturers under strict contracts that demand batch-level traceability and compliance with the latest standards. Every shipment arrives sealed with quality certificates and a documented chain of custody from the refinery to the store shelf. Internal quality control teams and spot audits reinforce this system, scanning pallets and verifying supplier credentials at every step. The lab-confirmed result was that not a single sample from this channel showed outdated specs, missing additives, or viscosity failures. Compare that to the patchwork sourcing of independent convenience stores, or the chaos of online marketplaces where third-party sellers and regional distributors can slip substandard or outright counterfeit oil into the mix. In the major retailer model, there is no middleman to introduce risk and no backdoor for obsolete or fake product to reach unsuspecting drivers. The API Aftermarket Audit Program and PQIA independent surveys consistently report a 0% failure rate for in-store purchases at these chains. That is not just a statistical fluke. It is the outcome of a closed-loop supply chain that leaves no room for bait-and-switch tactics and label fraud exposed elsewhere in the market. For anyone looking for the safest bet, the answer is clear. The only bottle in our test that was consistently safe came from a major in-store retailer, backed by a supply chain built for accountability. Spotting a safe bottle of motor oil in the wild takes more than a quick glance at the brand. The American Petroleum Institute's two official marks, the donut and the starburst, are the first line of defense. The donut, usually stamped on the back label, spells out the API service category and viscosity grade. The starburst, found on the front, means the oil meets the latest ILSAC standards for fuel economy and emissions. Not every oil gets both. The starburst is reserved for a narrow set of grades, while the donut covers a broader range. If either mark looks off, with wrong colors, fuzzy print, missing contrast, or odd placement, it is a warning sign. Counterfeiters often get the details wrong, and even a small mistake can mean the bottle never passed through a licensed factory. Next comes the batch or lot code. Every legitimate bottle carries a unique code, usually printed or laser etched near the barcode or neck. Major brands like Mobil 1, Pennzoil, and Castrol now include QR codes or serial numbers you can scan with a phone. These link directly to the manufacturer's database. If the code does not resolve or the website throws up a warning, that is a red flag. The API also runs a public portal where anyone can enter the certification code and confirm the oil's registration. Bottles missing a batch code with a generic or repeated number, or that fail the API lookup, should be left on the shelf. Label errors are another giveaway. Misspelled words, mismatched fonts, or claims that do not line up, like a starburst logo paired with a viscosity grade not approved for that mark, signal trouble. Watch for obsolete API categories like SA, SB, or SC anywhere on the label. These specs have not been valid for decades. If a bottle claims to meet only an outdated category, it is either leftover stock that should have been pulled or a counterfeit using old templates to dodge scrutiny. For anyone who wants absolute certainty, especially after a suspicious purchase, third-party labs like Blackstone offer virgin oil analysis. For about $85, they will break down the oil's chemistry, check for key additives, and compare the results to the manufacturer's published spec sheet. The lab's report can serve as proof if you need to challenge a seller or file a dispute. The bottom line: prevention works best in the aisle, not after the engine is already damaged. A checklist, official marks, batch code, label quality, and when in doubt, lab verification can mean the difference between safe maintenance and a catastrophic repair bill. Right now, more than 1 in 3 bottles on U.S. shelves fails modern engine standards, according to API and PQIA audits. Fake or obsolete oil is not just a foreign scam. It is a local, billion-dollar threat hiding behind familiar brands and weak oversight. For drivers, the cost is not theoretical. It is seized engines, denied claims, and lost warranties. In the oil aisle, trust is earned, not assumed. Stay vigilant and check every label.